Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what's possible, one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the authors of a new book that we have coming out. This one is called Stop the Silence: Thriving After Child Sexual Abuse. And before I introduce my authors to you today, I want to say a humongous thank you to Dr. Pamela J. Pine, who is the lead author of this amazing collaboration. Pam, your mission was huge, is huge for this topic and this book. And I thank you so much for who you are and what you do in the world, and for gathering this amazing cast of experts to talk about a really hard subject. And without you, we would not be here. So just a huge thanks to you today before we dive in. So I have Donna Jensen with me today. She has 30 years of experience as a survivor, activist, author, and playwright. She's the founder of Time to Tell, empowering survivors to find and use their voices. And Kim Lakin-Krager teaches and empowers adults with a 2-hour class to respond, react, and know what to do and where to go if a child shares their secret of child sexual abuse. Strong Oak LaFave is the executive director of Visioning Bear, B-E-A-R, Circle Intertribal Coalition, Inc. You guys, I can't wait to have this conversation with all of you. Thank you so much for being here today. Thanks, everybody. So let's start the party off with Donna. Donna, tell us about the chapter that you wrote.
Well, first of all, I'm delighted to be here with you, Laura, and with the other two that are with us. It's great to be in community. And my chapter is the third one, and it's called The Survivor Community: Relationships for Healing. And I really struggled when you first asked for a particular subject for our chapters. I was going to do it about writing as survivors, because I do that so much for many years, helping survivors write their stories. And then I realized I've done all that, and what haven't I said that I know really needs to be heard? And that's the incredible healing properties of being in relationships with other survivors.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Where do we go from there? It's so important. And I'm so happy that you started today's conversation about community, because it's one of the things that I think makes or breaks people. Seriously, is to be surrounded. What else do you want to tell us about that?
Well, the thing is how hard it felt. At first, I thought I couldn't be in relationship with other survivors. It was hard enough to hold my own pain, let alone others. And yet I came to realize that we were harmed in relationships, and we have to heal within relationships. And to heal with other survivors is golden. Yeah.
So if you're somebody who is scared off a little bit because of that first thing you said, we were hurt in relationship, and now all of a sudden we don't trust anybody.
Exactly.
So like, how do you get from that place back to what you said second, which is actually that's the place that you heal? How did you do it?
Well, it took a long time for me to finally say out loud that I'm a survivor. But once I did, it was probably 15 years worth of healing before I could say it publicly. Or, when I say public, I mean just with a few other people. But when I did, every time I did, someone would say, "Oh, so am I," which blew my mind, that every time I came out, somebody else would come out. It was just a natural, it just happened. And then it was, well, of all these people that are coming out, is there anyone that looks like I'd like to be friends with? Because, you don't want to be friends with everybody. But, and Strong Oak is one of them. here today. Um, Once you know each other as survivors, then you start thinking, well, might we have something else to say to each other besides just, I'm one also. So
Yeah, really good
that's,
point.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Donna, thank you. Thank you for being here, and what a perfect segue to Strong Oak because you're up next. So, and how cool it was. I told you guys I don't set up the meetings of these Zooms like the universe does that. So I love that the universe puts you two together. Strong Oak, tell us a little bit about your chapter.
Our chapter 12, is about becoming visible and coming out of the fog. We're very late to actually allowing the memories of our trauma to come forward. Um, there were a lot. It was just a torturous experience. But what made me choose this chapter was recognizing that people who do harm aren't necessarily all bad. I began to see it was behavior. And I always thought that, the creator of Gem and Ado, as we refer to the creator, didn't like us, didn't appreciate anything that was negative whatsoever. And yet, when I went to these UIPI ceremonies in South Dakota, I saw that there was real medicine and ceremony was having an impact, and that the medicine family itself was rife with domestic and physical violence, sexual violence, and it just blew everything I knew out, and I had to figure out a way to integrate what that meant. And it began a process of transformation for me to begin to see things as behaviors and experiences, like we see ourselves as a survivor, that these are experiences we had. We don't refer to ourselves as a victim. We're a whole person, and these are the experiences. And then we began to see people who do harm in the same way, and that it was important that they be healed, because if they're not healed and they're not seen as human beings, then there will be no end to the violence, because they will just continue on and on. And we began to really appreciate the value of ceremony for healing, because it was just incredible what we experienced. And then we went on to have many other experiences where we are a sun dancer, and we precisely went because we knew we had unresolved trauma from our childhood, and we were supporting the men, in a role reversal kind of way, like we were protecting the men while they pierced, and they were sending out to their whole communities, like Donna was saying. It's important to look at the community as your source of healing and your relationships. So the dancing was a big part of our healing. We we didn't start dancing till we were 70. So 4 days, 4 nights without the food and water, and getting up at 3:30 in the morning and doing sweat lodges. And it was profound. But then when we had a wiping of the tears ceremony, that was profound. It was like every cell in our body was resonating to the lifting, because we began to realize the reason we needed ceremony is the trauma is embedded in the DNA. And as an Indigenous woman, we just had a lot of unresolved trauma from, the residential boarding schools, and the impact on our community, because in our community we have 2.5 times the rate of sexual violence of any racial group, actually. And the violence in our community is just so embedded. So these ceremonies are really important. So that's what drove my choice of this particular chapter. I wanted to show that, like, the importance of putting yourself out there in a situation where you don't have any control, in a sense that it's all new people. Like when we went to the ceremony in the chapter, we didn't know anyone. We just went there, and we were watching this whole tableau, and we saw, there were people that were experiencing violence even at the event. And so that was important. And then yet the healings that happened in there was a man that was healed from AIDS at a time when there was no cure. from participating in the ceremony. And 30 years later, we met him again. So, and we had never met him before, but we were part of his healing. So life is a magical experience.
You can say that again. Thank you, Strong Oak. Thank you for being here. Funny enough, you guys, we just published this week a book called Rites and Rituals, Harnessing the Power of Sacred Ceremony. So I'll give Dr. Reverend Ariana Platten a shout out, since Strong Oak talked about ceremony already today. It's important and interesting, and it can be magical, and I'm really happy and proud to be sharing these voices that are starting to talk about healing in lots of different ways. So thank you. Kim, how about you? Tell us about your chapter.
Good morning, Laura and Donna and Strong Hope. I'm honored to be here with you this morning. I am chapter 10 in our book, and my chapter is called Resilient, the tenacity of a little girl and becoming an adult writer. And my chapter is about empowering adults who know how to watch out for child sexual abuse, how to spot the signs, how to then react if you spot the signs, or a child comes to you and tells you about their secret, how you respond to that. A lot of times will kind of dictate how the rest of their healing goes. Because a lot of times if you are very, very emotional and responsive, not that you don't mean to be harmful, the child could take it that way just because you are so adamant about maybe getting back at the person that hurt them or whatever. And so it's just important. And I wish that I would have had this when I was raising my 3 kids, to know exactly what to do when a child comes to you, or if you realize something's happening.
So I know I've said to you privately how I wished I had had more of that kind of education prior, to be able to pick up the signs that sometimes are so subtle, or kind of on the fence of appropriate, but you ignore it because it's not quite all the way there, or whatever, you know what I mean. What else do you want to say about that you think is important for people to understand?
Yeah, I think that what we're taught as we're training for this curriculum that I teach, which is Darkness to Light, Stewards of Children, I didn't mention that, is that a lot of times abusers will do these offending behaviors, and that's what you see. A lot of times, probably 85% of the time or so, you're not going to see the actual act being committed, but you'll see all these little offending behaviors because the abuser is trying to, just get you used to, this is the way that things are, and this is the way that we act, and this is the way that we do things. And a lot of times, I know other people have talked about this as well, if you come from a home that is abusive, you don't know any different. That's your normal. And so for you to be able to understand that that is not normal is huge in a child's recovery. And so that's just my heart, is to help other adults to recognize that and understand, and then believe the child.
Yes.
You need to stop thinking that. Yeah.
Thank you, Kim. And I want to just say a huge thank you to all 3 of you, not just for saying yes to the project, but also for taking the challenge that I gave you to really share vulnerably. And then, the books, just so that the readers understand, we're sharing stories, but then these beautiful expert authors are changing into master teacher, which they are, and they're offering a practice that you can put to practice right from the words of the book, and really help yourself through some of these different things. So thank you to all 3 of you for doing that so brilliantly. Donna, did you want to add something to what Kim said?
No, I haven't read the book yet, only my chapter. And Kim, thank you for the work you're doing. It's so important. My God. And I just wanted to say, people always ask me, what should I say when a survivor comes out to me? And I always say the 2 most important things are, I believe you, and it wasn't your fault. And I just wanted to kind of get a check from you about whether that fits your approach.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's what I wanted to hear when I was a
Yeah,
child.
right. Me too.
You know,
I
I'm
still
going to
want to
be
hear
there
it.
for you. Yeah, I still want to hear it. You're right.
Yeah.
So, no, that's huge in recovery, is just saying,
Yeah.
I believe you. That is the start
Yeah.
of the child's recovery.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks.
ladies,
Yeah.
let's move into this next question. Strong Oak, I'm going to start with you for this next one, and it's perfect that I'm starting with you because you actually touched on it already when you were speaking earlier. So I've seen the terms victim, survivor, and now thriver. Is it important to you to stop using the label of victim, or what are your thoughts about the labels?
Oh, they're nouns, and they define a person because of that. And we're not defined by the abuse. We're defined by our own spiritual beingness and like what we came in here to do as people. And these are things that happen to us and their experiences. And we are whole, and that's important. And these are behaviors that we can work with and shift. We don't use any of the terms of the nouns anymore because of this. And we don't do it to the person who does the harm either. We refer to them as people who have done harm to others, severe harm to others, and people who have pain inside from where that behavior is emanating. And to get to that pain is the same pain that I'm carrying. That pain needs to be spoken and needs to be open for recovery, and so that they can be their whole person and move in the world in a meaningful way without harming others. And all of the work we do is in that direction. Like what we do, we designed a whole curriculum called Walking in Balance with All Our Relations, and in it is about addressing things just the way we're talking now, including all forms of harm, reproductive justice, political justice. And we see everyone has been impacted by the culture that we live in as the systemic root of all of the violence. And because of its lack of access and inequitable distribution and the lack of food and housing security for so many of us. But it's like the violence comes from that place, from having had all our wealth taken from us. Like the land for indigenous people, the land and women and the whole thing is connected. We've had a hard time with people understanding the connection between women and the land and the trauma. And we go back to the womb where the trauma, when generations of trauma actually carried and that needs to be healed. We're afraid we're talking too long, but what we want to say is that this healing for all of us is so important. And we have 7 generations of harm to deal with, and to make our decisions based on going forward is about today, how we act today, our behavior today, what we do today. How, if it were our last day, how will we be? What choices will we make today? Like for me right now, if this were my last day, this is the most important thing that we would want to be sharing. So I really appreciate the honor to be here. So it may be more than what you expected me to say, Laura, but
no, I love it. And I really appreciate your talking about it in terms of behaviors and experiences, because those are different than labels. And so I appreciate all that you've shared, Strong Oak. Thank you. I'm going to move to Kim first, and then Donna, you're going to have a chance to. Kim, what do you want to add? So, for Kim and Donna and all of these topics, and for the listeners too, we start on any one of these juicy topics. We'll be here for all day talking about the one day, right? And it's so hard because this is about awareness. And these authors are dropping juicy nuggets of awareness. And we hope you're waking up in the middle of it in something that they said that maybe you never thought about it that way. That is what I know is happening for our listeners, and why this is world changing kind of stuff, you know? But first, Kim, what do you want to add to this one about the labels? Like, what are your thoughts about the labels that are used? Victim, survivor, thriver?
I preferred thriver. I think it just gives you a little bit more power. I mean, it's not, oh, I'm the victim. So I always, whenever I get a chance to, I'll always say thriver. That's just kind of my preference, because I think it does give you a little bit of power, because we are survivors, and I think there was another lady that said something about thrivers. I thought, oh, wow, let's put
Make
those
up
two
our own
together. That's
word.
awesome. That's right.
Well, to you personally, what does it mean to be a thriver? How has that played out in your life personally?
Personally, I think it means to, first of all, I was told as a child that sexual abuse happens. And so I made the decision at 18 that I was not going to just let that happen to my baby that I was pregnant with. And so you have to make a choice. And I think that it is a really clear choice. Unfortunately, especially with, thrivers like us, who, if you're coming from a generation of abuse, like I mentioned before, that's kind of the path that you'll fall into just out of habit, because that's just the way it is. So you have to make a real conscious, I think, decision, especially as a survivor, a thriver, to not let that be a part of your adulthood and your parenthood and your child's life. And so it was just really important to me not to always label myself like that, and to be more positive about how happy my kids were growing up. It wasn't about me and my past. It was about what I could do for my children going forward, and other
Yes.
children.
Yes, definitely. Make different choices. Yeah, I like that. Okay, Donna, what I know you wanted to say something about what Strong Oak was talking about, but how would you answer this question as well? Like, what are your thoughts about the labels?
Yeah. Yeah, they're all appropriate at different stages, I think, of our healing. And I'm still looking for something beyond thriver. The word hasn't been found, but how do I know I'm in that state of being as opposed to being victim? Is how quickly I bounce back after I get triggered. Because it used to be in the early days, I could go down, I call it the rabbit hole, for anywhere from a day to a week, a couple of times longer, where I wouldn't, relate to anybody except my daughter, because I had to feed her. To now I can bounce back quickly from a trigger, because they're going to happen, but it's not as long a drop away. And that's very connected to self-care and knowing what I can do to take care of myself and prepare myself, and also heal do something healing for myself when I do get triggered, to the point where somebody gave me the label of Queen of Self-Care. So that is the label I now like the best above the other three, because this self-care is just enormously important, and makes a big difference. And we need to do it constantly. We have to constantly be giving ourselves care. I think every human does, actually, but we especially with our trauma.
I like that label.
Can I make a response to Strong Oak, what she was talking about? It was
Yeah, please.
So important. I want to say that when I started on my healing journey, which was 25 years ago, I didn't want to hear anything about compassion for abusers. I was earmuffed all the way. Don't tell me about that. Forget that. I would even curse about it. I only care about survivors and their healing, and they can just go somewhere else. And I'm being very careful how I'm speaking here. Anyway, but I am so happy that Strong Oak and all the people that are involved in restorative justice are holding this out as part of the work, part of the healing. It took me a long time to understand that hurt people hurt people. And I didn't want to understand that. I just wanted to say, they're the bad guys and we should just get rid of them. You know, I mean, I'd be honest, that's how I felt. And I don't feel that way anymore. And I just have such appreciation for the work Strong Oak is doing to put this forward into the world. So thank you, Strong Oak.
Yeah, I think that I would add that it's very brave to even go there in this conversation, because most people who might be listening would be at that beginning stage where they're like, F you, forget them.
Right. Yeah,
and
that's
it would,
it. That's it.
yeah, and I get that. And I think it's brave to talk about the healing of all beings, no matter what they did or who they are or what happened. And I think that an individual who has been abused, their own healing journey may take them there or not eventually, all the way to the place of forgiveness, or not. It may not in their lifetime. They may not be able to get there. But I think what we're doing today, and what I love about what we're doing, is we're normalizing these conversations. We're actually speaking out loud about some of these things, and maybe even just talking about how it's brave to forgive your abuser. It's brave to even talk about what that even means for you, because it means something different for every single person. I think that's really great that we can even bring it up, you guys. Just even bring it up, So, okay, so more juicy questions for you all. Kim, I want to start with you for this next one. I don't have the actual statistics, but I know it's in the 90s, okay? A very high number of cases like this, in the 90th percentile. The abuse is not by a stranger. And I know you all know this statistic, intimately, but what do you think is the most important thing for people to understand about this? What do you want them to know?
I think one of the questions or the concerns that I always get from everybody that leaves my class is, I don't want this to be that I just can't trust anybody. I'm in that frame where I just can't trust anybody. And so how do you get past that? And I always say, you really can't trust anybody, but you can't live in a world of fear either. So that's why it's so important that some of the signs, and how you could maybe minimize that opportunity so that it doesn't happen, how you can talk about it so that your kids understand that this isn't right and this is wrong. So I think I might have just lost what you said.
No, I think what you're touching on is super important, and I'll take it. I want to back up and rewind to something that you said. You said about the trust, and I think that these experiences blow up an individual's sense of trust for everyone else, but also, how can I even trust myself anymore to have not seen the signs? I know as a mother, watching from the outside and trying to go back and think about all the things I didn't see for my child that was happening, that blew my world up in terms of, how am I even going to trust my own self to be smart enough, to see what was happening. So that's what you're making me think of in terms of that. Is there anything else you wanted to add there?
Yeah, no, I just think being aware, and also communication with your children is huge, or with the child that you have a relationship with. That communication is going to be so important in their
Yes,
growing years.
extremely. Donna, what do you want to add on this one? You know, it's typically not a stranger when this happens. What's important for people to know about this?
Oof, this is a tough one. This is a really, really tough one. I'm assuming, Kim, that you're relating to parents of children, you're relating to parents. Am I right? Is your courses for parents or for children?
It's for the adults. Yeah, it's an adult class.
Yeah. So I want to say that sometimes you can't find that within your family if you're suspecting your child is being abused, and you need to reach out beyond your family to your dear friends, or maybe there are religious people or helpers within your community that you can turn to, because the family, to my experience, so many families are locked into holding their secrets in, that I think you need to, people who are suspicious that their children are being harmed need to probably go outside the family to ask for help, because many times when you ask for help within the family, you get shut down even deeper. At least that's what I've seen, and it's what I've experienced in my own family. So that's what I've got to say about this.
I think that's super important. And again, you all are dropping nuggets of awareness, or some of us maybe never even thought about that little fact that you just said. And so, of course, you're going to want to reach to the inner circle first. But in this case, the inner circle may not be the safe place to get the help. So it's super important what you said. Strong Oak, how about you on this question? What do you want people to know about that?
Well, just listening to what everyone else said, we want to say we lost 8 years with our family because one, we were the only one to name the violence that went on in the family, and also being two-spirit, that also factored. But what we really want to say, it was in our best interest to get out of our being all the anger, all the hate, all the sadness, all the grief. We needed to let that go to make room. We remember, I call it love. Love is this big ingredient. And that we wanted to experience love, and we wanted to experience joy. And we had to work through a lot to get there. A lot came from my relationship with my wife, 44 years together. And we went through all these things, trust, all this stuff. And, you know, even when we bought a house at first, we didn't want to have a commitment ceremony. And I said, well, we got a 30-year mortgage, you know, that's a big commitment, but we didn't want to say that we were going to commit, you know. But it's transformative to think that to pursue to being happy is the way out, and love and compassion. And profoundly, we want to say that we had been away from our family for 8 years when we were notified that my father, my abuser, was dying. And you noticed I cross pronouns because they don't fit for me in the indigenous world. I think agama is a word I would use. But when I went, and we thought it was profoundly important to send him on with some kind of positive message. And we were involved in like washing his body at the end, and we were holding his hand. We were the child holding his hand when he took his final breath. And we just said we hope that he knew how to receive love in the afterlife, because he wasn't able to do it here. And we sent that on with him, and that was profound. And that happened after 8 years of not being with my family. That reconnected us with our family, and then with our mother, who we had a lot of issues with, as someone who didn't protect us during childhood. In the end, we had such a beautiful, transformative experience. And like, we loved her unconditionally. And we saw her pain. And my sister and myself, we even told her that we understood that had she not stayed together, that we might have been one of those murder-suicide things, because that's how profound the abuse was. And we forgave her. And yeah, it was very profound. And like I feel, and then the big thing about letting all that out had nothing to do with the abuser. It had to do with making room for really feeling life. I remember when I first got like these goosebumps in my body beyond the usual ones, in your arms when you see something beautiful. When people would speak truth, I would start to feel it. And then I could really trust that. And then I began to think about it's okay to shed boughs when like from trees, like the tree boughs right now are shedding to keep the trunk strong. I said, we don't allow toxic relationships in our life anymore. We just let it go. And we do the grieving about that and move on, because we can't, that was profound, because we can't heal what we didn't cause. Like I think children try to heal the abuser when we're living it, that we put ourselves to blame because we're protecting them. But if you think about it, what if a child believed this was not their fault? What hope would you have? How could you go forward if you're like a prisoner of war in a family where you think that you're to blame, that you're not to blame? That would be the most profound hurt. So we appreciate when people go through that process of figuring out, no, I couldn't do that. But you figure it out sometimes after a number of relationships where you recreate it. But that's a profound understanding that you don't have control over other people's behavior. And so you only have control of what you do. And being aware of that has made a big difference in my life. Yeah, we're just happy to feel profoundly and to be able to love now, and to be able to let go of the people who would abuse us in the future. So I guess that's the most profound thing we would want to say, that really love and compassion is the way through for our own benefit, not,
Yeah, I do know what you're saying, and it's such beautiful awareness. And some of y'all have some ninja moves of awareness because you've been through a lifetime's worth of practice. And I appreciate being here with you. You are gifting me and listeners with that beautiful awareness. And thank you, Strong Oak. All right, ladies, I have one more question for you to kind of finish off our interview today, and it's really geared towards our listeners. We author experts, we like to talk about ourselves as guides or facilitators on the journey. We don't fix people, we know this. We empower people to connect with their own inner wisdom. And I love that is part of what I call that authentic healing journey is we are that maybe guide or facilitator. So Donna, you first on this one. What's one way you can help our listeners feel empowered? What's that one last thing you want them to know today? Oh, you're muted, Donna. Sorry.
I want a very quick quote from Rupi Kaur, the poet. How you love yourself is how you teach others to love you. And I believe for building relationships with other survivors, you have to love yourself first. And in my chapter, I talk about a process called mirror work, where you sit in front of the mirror and tell yourself all the things you're proud of and love about yourself, and look yourself in the eye when you say it. And it works. I believe it works because it worked for me. And I taught a lot of survivors to do this. Do mirror work every morning for 30 days, and you won't believe what's going to happen for you. I'm so proud of you, Donna.
I love mirror work. It's profound healing work.
Yeah,
If you all
yeah.
haven't heard of it or tried it, it
Mhm.
is really amazing. So you're going to have to stay tuned for Donna's chapter so you can read the practice that she's sharing. It's funny enough, we're doing a self-love letter challenge right now in one of my groups, and it had the same purpose as what you're talking about. Like, we need to practice loving on ourselves, looking at ourselves and saying it, writing the love letters, all the things. So I love that. So Strong Oak, how about you for this last one? What's one thing you want our listeners to know? How can you help them feel empowered today?
Um, we would say that they have all the power and they just need to use it and to trust their intuition and trust the direction that they're going in, and voice and share with others, so that to recognize you're never alone. And the other piece to that would be, if you connect to the land and you go out and you pick a special place for yourself, develop a relationship with it, you will feel the love for the land for you. And when you feel that, you are never alone. Never, never.
I love that. I feel that with some special places that I'm familiar with. I love that you mentioned that. That's another way of thinking about connection when you feel lonely. Thank you. Kim, how about you?
So I think I could probably take a lot of lessons from Donna, and I look forward to maybe implementing some of your stuff in the book as well, because I am still working on taking care of this. And so I would just say to be patient. I mean, just be patient with yourself. I mean, we're all walking on different journeys, and we've all got different lessons to learn, and sometimes it takes longer to get to where we're going than others. But even though, as long as we just keep moving ahead, then we'll be okay. Just keep moving ahead, and look for all those silver linings and take good care of us. Like Donna says, that's what we need to
Thank you. I think I like all of those in combination. Keep stepping forward, be
do.
patient. To all of you, Strong Oak, Donna, Kim, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everyone. Listeners, I know that something that you heard today might have sparked that light bulb in you. So just scroll down to the show notes underneath the video, and I have all of our authors hooked up with their websites there. Please take a little exploration and see what awesome things that they are up to in the world. Pretty amazing. All of you are doing some world-changing work in the world. And I thank you so much for that and for being a part of this project. And back to our listeners, you're invited to come join all of the authors of Stop the Silence for our book launch party, which is going to be on let's see, I think it's the 10th. Yes. March 10th, 10 a.m. Eastern. You're going to find the Zoom information down below. And if you happen to be listening to this interview after that date, well, that means you should pop over to Amazon and grab your copy of this book, Stop the Silence. And all of the royalty proceeds from this book are going to be going back to Dr. Pamela J. Pine's organization called Stop the Silence, donated back. And so your purchases, beyond having an amazing book, also go for some good in the world, you guys. So I hope that you'll purchase your copy when it's ready. And lastly, today, everybody, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it is time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Bye, authors.